Hello guys, got another Prager University video. This one is on how the Iraq War was won and lost. I have a feeling this one is going to be a beauty, so let's watch.
The Iraq War was an absolute disaster, a historic mistake.
That's true.
That's probably what most Americans, not to mention most people around the world, would say. But is it true?
Yes,
President
it is.
George W. Bush's decision to invade Iraq in 2003 is subject to fair debate. But it's important to recall that at the time, the war had overwhelming bipartisan support in the House and Senate.
Alright, this is where we got to stop at. The reason why it had overwhelming bipartisan support was namely because Bush lied. He fabricated evidence that Iraq had WMD when in fact there was no such evidence to suggest that. And it was the years after, it was actually a year after 9/11. Dick Cheney implied numerous times that Saddam had a role to play in 9/11 when in fact he did not have a role to play in 9/11. But let's continue.
Dozens of allied countries joined the coalition. That support, however, quickly faded as casualties mounted and the war started to bog down. Criticism then turned to blame when the weapons of mass destruction that were expected to be found were not. Nothing seemed to be going right. I know. I was there, serving as a lieutenant in the United States Army. As 2007 dawned, President Bush faced a near total collapse in both public and political support for the war. He had to make an impossibly difficult decision. Accept strategic defeat and leave Iraq in chaos, or send even more troops into battle. He chose the latter, a decision that came to be known as the Surge. The Democrats predicted disaster. Senator Harry Reid, the majority leader at the time, said, "This war is lost, and the Surge is not accomplishing anything." Senators Joe Biden, John Kerry, and Hillary Clinton agreed. They were all wrong. Led by General David Petraeus and supplemented by 30,000 additional troops, American forces and their Iraqi counterparts reversed the course of the war.
No, they did not. What happened was General Petraeus had a policy where he would bribe the non-Al-Qaeda folks within the Iraqi insurgency, and he was bribing them to not fight and kill American troops. That's really how the war reversed course. The Iraqi insurgents weren't really defeated in really any meaningful way. They were simply bribed into not fighting. But this is, like I keep saying, this is Prager University. Everything you hear, you got to take it with a pound of salt.
It was one of the most stunning and successful turnabouts in modern military history. In 2008, I returned to the country to see for myself. I had seen the before. I could hardly believe the after. Attacks on U.S. forces were down 90%. American casualties were rare. Baghdad's most dangerous neighborhoods were secure. Al-Qaeda in Iraq was decimated. The oil was flowing again, Iraqis were rebuilding, and new elections were held. This was the Iraq that President Barack Obama inherited when he took the oath of office on January 20th, 2009. Now, Iraq was certainly no Western-style democracy, but it was, as General Petraeus dubbed it, a functioning Iraqracy. So much so that in a February 2009 speech to Marines at Camp Lejeune, President Obama said, "The relative peace and strong participation in January's provincial elections sent a powerful message to the world about how far Iraqis have come." Vice President Joe Biden was even more enthusiastic a year later when he said in February of 2010, "I am very optimistic about Iraq. I think it's going to be one of the greatest achievements of this administration." To put it mildly, it wasn't. So, what went wrong? It started when the Obama administration got into a dispute with the Iraqi government over something called a Status of Forces Agreement.
It wasn't a dispute. Simply put, the Iraqi government and the Iraqi people did not want a permanent occupying force in their country, and they wanted the United States military gone. So that's what it was. I mean, if you reverse the situation and imagined if somebody was permanently occupying the United States, eventually the American people would also want that occupying army gone. In fact, we fought a war to get them out at one point.
The Iraqis said they wanted to be able to prosecute American soldiers who broke Iraqi law. Appropriately, the Obama administration said no. We will prosecute our own lawbreakers. But instead of continuing to work towards an agreement, the president, against the advice of his own generals, ended negotiations. President Obama had said during his campaign that he would bring all the troops home. And the status of forces dispute gave him the perfect excuse to do just that.
Well, first though, that's just complete and utter BS. Like I said earlier, the Iraqi people and the Iraqi government did not want us there. They wanted us gone, and they wanted to determine their own future and their own destiny, rather than having an occupying army bullying them around and telling them how to live their lives. This is human nature. This is the concept of self-determination is not unique to the Iraqi people. It's a universal human value. And what Obama did was he saw an opportunity, and it is correct, he saw an opportunity to end a deeply unpopular war that was started based off of a lie. And 3 minutes and 51 seconds into this video, Prager doesn't even mention that. It doesn't mention that the war was started based on a lie. I wonder why.
On December 18th, 2011, the last U.S. soldiers crossed the border into Kuwait. The United States military was out of Iraq. The Iraq War was over for America, but it was about to begin again for Iraqis. Islamist terror, which U.S. soldiers had successfully crushed, returned with a new vengeance, most prominently in the form of ISIS. And the fragile peace between Sunnis and Shia fell apart. With America nowhere to be seen, Iraq's neighbor to the east and America's mortal enemy, Iran, filled the political vacuum.
Alright, now that's just complete and utter bullshit. The minute the last American soldier left Iraq, Iraq's sectarian Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki, he unleashed a campaign of terror on Iraq's minority Sunni population. Okay, and he is kind of right that America in this area was silent. We were nowhere to be seen. We didn't really say much regarding Maliki's own misconduct against his fellow countrymen. Hence why, at the time, many Sunnis joined the ISIS invasion. But let's continue, though, because it just gets better.
While ISIS brutally exploited the security vacuum. Initially dismissed by President Obama as the JV team, ISIS took control of a large part of the country. Its black flag soon flew over Mosul, Fallujah, Ramadi, and many other cities that American troops had secured at great cost. The war that George W. Bush had won, Barack Obama had lost.
No, he didn't. Like I said earlier, the Iraqi insurgents were not militarily defeated. When the last American soldier left Iraq, Maliki immediately stopped paying the Iraqi tribesmen who were initially part of the Iraqi insurgency. He ceased all payments to them. That's how ISIS was so successful, because they co-opted these disgruntled tribes to joining them.
The painful lesson is this: resolve works, and retreat doesn't. When America commits to military victory, as it did during the surge, it can defeat its enemies. But when America retreats for political reasons, it loses. And so do millions of others. I'm Pete Hegseth for Prager University.
Yeah, that's bullshit. We left because number one, the Iraq War was costly, it was unpopular, and there was no winning. That's why we left.